The text lit up his screen at 2:47 a.m., a stranger's desperate plea for baby formula, and the word please cut through 3 years of carefully constructed numbness like a blade. But that moment was still minutes away. Maya Winters pressed her forehead against the kitchen cabinet, the laminate cool against her fevered skin. The baby's cries had become white noise an hour ago, a constant keen that burrowed into her skull and made a home there. 4 months old, and Arya had her mother's lungs, strong, persistent, unrelenting. The formula container sat on the counter, scraped clean. Maya had mixed the last scoop with an extra ounce of water that morning, stretching it, knowing even as she did that she was crossing a line mothers aren't supposed to cross. Arya had sucked it down and looked at her with those slate-blue eyes as if to say, "Really? That's all you've got?" The apartment was a study in making do. Studio, technically, though that suggested something artistic rather than simply small. The AC had died in July, 2 months ago, and the landlord's promises had died with it. Maya had learned to sleep in just her underwear with the windows open, praying the broken screen would hold, that nothing worse than mosquitoes would find its way in. The walls were thin enough that she knew Mrs. Chen next door was watching her Korean dramas. The couple above her were fighting again, their thuds and shouts of familiar percussion. And somewhere below, someone was cooking something with garlic and ginger that made Maya's stomach clench with hunger she'd been ignoring since lunch. Since yesterday's lunch, actually. She'd eaten today, half a protein bar between the morning shift at Mel's Diner and the evening shift at the nursing home. The tips had been terrible. $17 for 8 hours on her feet, because apparently, Tuesday afternoons attracted exclusively terrible tippers or broke people or both. Her phone sat on the counter next to the empty formula container, screen cracked in a spiderweb pattern from when she dropped it last week. The background photo was from 2 years ago, her in nursing scrubs at her white coat ceremony, the future bright and clean and full of promise. She'd had to drop out 3 months later when the pregnancy test came back positive and Derek came back gone. The bank app showed $4.32 in checking. Negative $47 in savings. She'd overdraft last week for diapers, and the fee had compounded. Payday was Friday, 3 days away, and her paycheck was already spent on the portion of rent she could cover, the electricity bill that was 2 months overdue, and the phone bill that kept her connected to the possibility of better shifts, better tips, better anything. Arya's cries escalated, taking on that edge that meant she was moving from angry to desperate. Maya knew the sound. She lived in that space herself. She pushed off the cabinet and moved to the porta-crib wedged between her bed and the bathroom door. Arya's face was red, scrunched, furious at a world that promised milk and delivered excuses. "I know, baby. I know." Maya lifted her, and Arya rooted against her shoulder immediately, seeking, expecting, trusting that Mama would provide because Mama always provided. Except tonight, Mama's breasts had dried up weeks ago, betrayed by stress and poor nutrition and the reality that bodies need fuel to make fuel. The lactation consultant at the free clinic had been kind but firm, "You need to eat more, rest more, stress less." As if those were choices rather than luxuries. Maya bounced Arya, swaying in the small space between furniture that was all secondhand or curbside. The dresser wobbled. The bed frame had lost a wheel and sat propped on textbooks from her abandoned degree. The mirror had a crack running through it that made her reflection look fractured, which felt about right. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Church this Sunday? We need to talk about your choices." Maya didn't respond. She knew what talk about your choices meant. It meant listen to a lecture about Derek, about giving up school, about the baby, about everything that had led to this moment of standing in an overheated studio at nearly 3 a.m. with a screaming infant and empty cupboards. Another text, this one from Tammy, her coworker. "Can you cover my shift tomorrow? Migraine." Maya's jaw clenched. She was already working a double. But Tammy had covered for her twice last month when Arya had that fever, when the daycare had called and Maya had to choose between her daughter and her paycheck. Yeah. What time? 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. You're a lifesaver. A lifesaver. Maya almost laughed. She couldn't even save herself. She scrolled through her contacts, thumb hovering over names. Her mother, no. That conversation would cost more than formula. It would cost the last shreds of her dignity and autonomy. Derek, blocked. He'd made it clear that fatherhood looked better in theory than in practice, especially when it came with stretch marks and responsibility. Her college roommate, Jessica, who'd lent her money twice already and stopped responding to texts 3 weeks ago. Pride was expensive, but so was formula. Maya opened her messages to Jessica, Arya still wailing against her chest, and began typing with one thumb, the other hand supporting her daughter's head. Please. I know I still owe you from last month, but Arya's formula is gone and she won't stop crying. I get paid Friday. Can you spot me $30? I'm begging you. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. She hit send before she could second-guess it, before shame could stop her fingers, before the voice in her head that sounded like her mother could remind her that this was rock bottom, and she'd put herself here. The message showed as delivered. Maya stared at it, bouncing Arya, whispering pointless reassurances, waiting for the threes that would mean Jessica was typing, was reading, was maybe possibly, hopefully going to respond. Across the city, in a penthouse that made Maya's entire apartment look like a closet, James Hartwell stared at a photograph. The photo was 3 years old, frozen in that moment before everything shattered. His wife, Catherine, laughing at something he'd said, her hair catching sunlight in their back garden. And Emma, 6 months old, clutching Catherine's finger with that grip babies have, absolute trusting, assuming the world would hold on back. It hadn't. James set the photo face down on his desk, the same gesture he'd made 1,000 times, as if not seeing them would mean not feeling it. It never worked. His office was dark except for the glow of his laptop and the ambient light from the city below. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Seattle like a kingdom, all those lives twinkling in their separate darknesses. He used to find it beautiful. Now it just felt like distance. His phone sat next to the photo, buzzing periodically with messages he wasn't reading. His assistant, Rebecca, reminding him about the board meeting tomorrow. His brother, asking if he'd be at their mother's birthday dinner. His therapist's office, confirming the appointment he'd already decided to cancel. James Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Technologies, worth approximately $2.3 billion according to the last Forbes estimate, sat alone in his penthouse at 2:47 a.m. because sleep had become something other people did. The insomnia had started after the accident. Or maybe it had started during the endless hospital vigil, those 72 hours when hope became cruelty and the machines kept beeping like time still mattered. Either way, he'd forgotten how to let go of consciousness, how to trust that he'd wake up to a world worth waking to. He worked instead. Built companies, acquired competitors, optimized, strategized, grew his empire because numbers made sense and people didn't, and grief was easier to manage when it was buried under spreadsheets and quarterly projections. The penthouse reflected this philosophy. Clean lines, minimalist furniture, expensive and empty. The designer had called it sophisticated restraint. James called it nothing because he barely noticed it. He lived here the way someone lives in a hotel, passing through, leaving no trace, forming no attachment. There were 3 bedrooms. He used one. The master suite sat locked, exactly as Catherine had left it. The 3rd bedroom, Emma's nursery, he'd emptied the day after the funeral, packed everything into storage, and hadn't opened the door since. His mother had offered to help him redecorate. You can't live in a mausoleum, James. But that's exactly what he was doing, and it suited him fine. His phone buzzed again. James almost ignored it, his usual response to the world's attempts to reach him. But something about the time, the lateness, the vulnerability of 2:47 a.m., made him glance at the screen. Unknown number. The message preview showed, "Please. I know I still owe you from last month, but Arya's formula." He should have deleted it immediately. Wrong number, not his problem, nothing to do with him. Instead, he opened it. Read the full message. Stared at it for a long moment, this desperate plea from a stranger, this window into someone else's crisis. I'm begging you. James's finger hovered over the delete button. Then he thought of Catherine, of how she would have responded, immediately, generously, without hesitation. She'd been the warm one, the connector, The person who saw need and met it. He'd been the logical one, the planner, the one who fixed problems with money and systems. After she died, he'd stopped trying to be warm. It was easier. But something about that word, begging, caught him. Or maybe it was the name. Aria. Emma would have been 4 now. Maybe they would have been friends. He typed, wrong number. Sent it. Watched the 3 dots appear almost immediately, then disappear, then appear again. Oh God, I'm so sorry. James should have stopped there. Wished her luck, blocked the number, returned to his spreadsheets and his insomnia and his carefully constructed isolation. Instead he typed, how old? The response took longer this time. He imagined her on the other end, confused, maybe suspicious. 4 months. He stared at those 2 words. Emma's age when she died. His hands were shaking as he typed. What kind of formula? Maya stared at her phone, Aria's cries finally diminishing to whimpers as exhaustion took over. This stranger was asking about formula. Why? She typed back, Similac Pro Advance. But seriously, I'm sorry I texted you. You don't have to. His response came before she could finish. Where are you? And in that moment, both of them stood at the edge of something neither understood. A wrong number that was about to become the most right thing in both their broken lives. What would you do if a stranger's desperate text appeared on your phone at 3 a.m.? Would you delete it, or would you answer? Maya's thumb hovered over the keyboard, trembling. Where are you? The question felt too big, too loaded, too dangerous. She looked down at Aria, who had finally exhausted herself into fitful sleep against her shoulder. The baby's face was still flushed, tiny fists clenched even in rest, as if braced for the next disappointment. This is insane, Maya whispered to the silent apartment. He's probably a scammer. Or a creep. Or... But the text hadn't felt like either of those things. There was something careful in it, something almost tentative. Like he was asking permission to care. Her phone buzzed again. I can have formula delivered. Tonight. Just need an address. Maya's heart lurched. The offer was too good, too easy, too everything she needed and couldn't accept. Because accepting meant admitting she couldn't do this alone. It meant owing someone. It meant being vulnerable to a complete stranger who had accidentally wandered into her crisis. She typed, why would you do that? The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. She could feel his hesitation through the screen. Because someone's asking. And I can help. 7 words that cracked something in her chest. Maya sank onto the edge of her bed. Aria still clutched to her, and felt hot tears finally spill over. When was the last time someone had just helped? Without judgment, without lectures, without making her feel smaller for needing it? She should say no. She should thank him and decline and figure it out herself the way she always did. Instead, her fingers moved, 1247 Morrison Street, Unit 3B. But I'll pay you back. Friday. I promise. Not necessary. It is to me. A longer pause this time. Then, okay. Friday. Maya didn't know if he meant it or if he was just saying what she needed to hear. Either way, she'd given her address to a stranger, and now she had to sit here and wait to see if she just made the biggest mistake of her night or a miracle. 20 minutes later, her phone buzzed with a notification. Your delivery from Quickmart will arrive in 15 minutes. She pulled up the order confirmation, and her breath caught. Not 1 can of formula. 6. Premium brand. Plus diapers. 2 boxes. Baby wipes. Infant Tylenol. A pack of receiving blankets. The total, $347.82. Oh my God, Maya breathed. Oh my God, no, no, no. She frantically typed, that's too much. Way too much. Cancel it. Please. His response was immediate. Can't cancel. Already processed. I can't accept this. I asked for $30. You asked for formula. That's what this is. This is $350 worth of. Aria needs it, doesn't she? Maya stared at that text, at the way he'd used her daughter's name like she was real to him, like she mattered. The fight drained out of her, replaced by something more complicated. Gratitude tangled with shame tangled with a strange warmth she didn't have a name for. Yes. Then let me help. She wanted to argue more, to assert some kind of control over the situation that was spinning away from her. But Arya stirred against her shoulder, making small hungry sounds, and Maya's resolve crumbled. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. That's enough. Across the city, James sat back in his chair and released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His hands were still shaking slightly as he set his phone down. What the hell was he doing? Rebecca would kill him if she knew. His security team would have a coronary. He could hear his lawyer's voice. Never engage with unsolicited requests. You're a target, James. People will exploit any opening. But this hadn't felt like exploitation. It had felt like, he didn't know what. A drowning person grabbing a rope. And he happened to be holding the other end. He pulled up the delivery tracking, watched the little icon move through the city toward an address in a neighborhood he probably wouldn't have visited without a driver. The delivery was scheduled to arrive at 3:23 a.m. James imagined her there, waiting. Young probably, the desperation in her text felt young. Alone definitely. Scared certainly. He knew scared. His phone buzzed. I still can't believe you're doing this. You don't even know me. James typed, you don't know me either. Maybe we're both taking a risk. Are you always this nice to wrong numbers? He huffed a laugh, the sound strange in the empty office. You're my first. Lucky me. Maybe lucky both of us. He hadn't meant to type that last part. It felt too revealing, too honest. But it was true. For the first time in 3 years, he was doing something that didn't feel mechanical. Something that made him feel almost human. Can I ask you something? She typed. Okay. Why did you ask how old she was? My daughter. James's chest tightened. He could deflect. Should deflect. Instead, I had a daughter. She was 6 months old when she died. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared 3 times. He could feel her struggling with what to say, how to respond to that kind of confession from a stranger. Finally, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine. Don't. He typed it quickly, then forced himself to slow down. I just mean, you don't have to imagine it. That's not why I told you. Then why did you tell me? Good question. James stared at it. Because it felt wrong not to. You're trusting me with your address, with your daughter's needs. Seemed fair to give you something real back. That's more than real. That's everything. Yeah. They sat in silence, connected by pixels and pain, neither quite knowing what to do with this strange intimacy that had formed in the space between desperation and generosity. The delivery just arrived, she texted. There's a guy at my door with bags. So many bags. Good. This is too much. It's what she needs. I meant what you gave. Not just the stuff. I don't know. The giving a damn. James felt something crack in his chest, some piece of the armor he'd welded in place 3 years ago. Tell me when she's fed. So I know she's okay. Maya stood at her door, staring at the delivery driver who looked deeply confused about being called out at 3 a.m. to a rundown building with formula and diapers. She signed for the order with numb fingers, carried the bags inside, and set them on her small kitchen counter. 6 cans of formula. The good kind, the kind she'd priced at Target and put back because it was $10 more than the generic. Diapers in Aria's size. Wipes, the sensitive kind. Tylenol. Blankets so soft they made her throat tight. And a note, handwritten on Quick Mart stationery, for Aria. You're doing great, Mom. Maya pressed her fist to her mouth and let herself cry for the first time in months. Not from desperation this time, but from the overwhelming shock of being seen. Aria woke up fully at the sound, working herself up to a real cry. Maya wiped her face, pulled herself together, and mixed a bottle with steady hands. The formula dissolved perfectly, warm enough, exactly what her daughter needed. Aria latched on like she'd been starving, which Maya supposed she had been. Those slate blue eyes locked onto her mother's face, and Maya felt the familiar surge of fierce love mixed with the unfamiliar sensation of actual relief. She didn't have to stretch it. Didn't have to water it down. Didn't have to choose between feeding her daughter properly and keeping the lights on. For tonight, at least, Arya would be okay. Maya grabbed her phone one-handed, thumb typing while Arya drank. She's eating. Really eating. She's happy. The response came quickly. Good. That's good. Then, what about you? When did you eat last? Maya blinked at the question. When had she eaten? The protein bar felt like days ago. I'm fine. That's not what I asked. I'm not your responsibility. Didn't say you were. Asked when you ate. Maya felt her defenses rising, that familiar prickle of pride that had kept her going when everything else failed. Yesterday. I'm fine. Arya's what matters. You matter too. 3 words. Simple. Obvious, maybe. But Maya couldn't remember the last time someone had said them and meant it. I don't even know your name, she typed, suddenly needing to make this real, to attach identity to this stranger who was dismantling her carefully constructed walls. A pause. Then, James. I'm Maya. Maya, he typed back, and something about seeing her name on his screen felt significant. When was the last time someone helped you? The question landed like a punch. Maya looked around her tiny apartment, at all the evidence of doing everything alone, the second-hand furniture, the overflowing laundry, the calendar marked with shifts and bills and no room for anything else. I don't remember, she admitted. That's too long. Most people don't see me. They see a single mom with bad choices and a baby daddy who split. They see someone who couldn't hack nursing school. Someone who screws up orders and can't make rent. I don't see any of that. What do you see? James sat with that question, staring at his phone. What did he see? A desperate text, yes. But also courage. The guts to ask for help when pride said starve. The determination to pay it back even when she had nothing. A mother putting her daughter first, always. Someone who's surviving something most people couldn't, he typed. Someone strong enough to ask a stranger for help at 3 a.m. because her daughter needed it. That takes guts. Maya read his message 3 times, Arya still drinking steadily, the formula lasting, the panic of the last few hours finally receding. Thank you, James. For seeing me. For this. For giving a damn about a wrong number. Not wrong, he found himself typing. Maybe exactly right. They didn't text more that night. Some conversations reach a natural stopping point, a place where more words would be too much. But neither of them deleted the number. Maya fed Arya, changed her into a fresh diaper from the box that would last weeks instead of days, and wrapped her in one of the impossibly soft blankets. She put her daughter down in the porta-crib and watched her slip into the deep, satisfied sleep of a full belly. Then Maya made herself a piece of toast, white bread, no butter because she was out, but it was something. She ate it standing at her window, looking out at the city that held both her struggle and James's wealth, and wondered how a wrong number had become the most right thing to happen to her in months. Would you accept help from a complete stranger if you were desperate? Or would pride keep you from reaching out? Across town, James finally powered down his laptop. He didn't go to bed. Sleep still felt impossible. But he sat in his living room, lights off, city glowing below, and felt something he hadn't felt since the accident. Useful. Not powerful. Not wealthy. Not successful. Just needed. It was a dangerous feeling. He knew that. Getting involved in someone's life, caring about outcomes, opening himself up to matching, these were risks he'd sworn off after Catherine and Emma. But God, it had felt good to type those messages. To solve a problem that wasn't about market share or profit margins. To make a difference that was immediate and human and real. His phone sat next to him, dark and silent now. He should probably block the number. His therapist, if he bothered to show up, would definitely tell him to block the number. Instead, he saved it. Maya, he typed into the contact field. Just her name. No last name, no context needed. Then he sat there in his empty penthouse, surrounded by everything money could buy and nothing that mattered, and wondered if maybe possibly, a wrong number had just offered him a way back to being human. Maya woke to her alarm after 2 hours of sleep, her body protesting every movement. Arya was still sleeping, miracle of miracles, her little belly full enough to buy her mother a few extra minutes of peace. The formula can sat on the counter like an accusation. In the harsh light of Wednesday morning, last night's exchange felt surreal. Had she really given her address to a stranger? Had some man she'd never met really spent $350 on her daughter without asking for anything in return? Maya's stomach churned with an emotion she recognized too well: shame. Not the shame of needing help. She'd made peace with that at 3 a.m. This was different. This was the shame of accepting it. Of being seen at her lowest. Of knowing that somewhere in this city, a man named James knew exactly how desperate she was, how close to the edge, how completely she'd failed at doing this alone. Her phone showed 3 texts from Tammy confirming the shift coverage, one from her mother she didn't open, and nothing from James. Which was good. Perfect, actually. He'd helped, she'd accepted, and now they could both move on with their lives. She'd pay him back Friday like she promised, and that would be that. Except. Maya stared at his contact name in her phone. No last name. No photo. Just James and a number and the entire conversation from last night that she'd read 4 times before falling asleep. You matter too. She should delete it. Thank him one more time and delete it and go back to her life of managing alone because alone was safe. Alone meant no one could leave. No one could judge. No one could see her like this and decide she wasn't worth the trouble. Derek had taught her that lesson well enough. Her finger hovered over the delete button. Arya made a small sound, and Maya pocketed her phone. Some decisions could wait until after coffee and a 14-hour shift. James sat in his corner office on the 43rd floor of Hartwell Tower, staring at his phone instead of the quarterly report spread across his desk. Rebecca had been in twice already, her efficiency thinly masking concern. You look like you didn't sleep. I didn't. The board meeting is in an hour. Johnson's going to push back on the acquisition terms. You need to be sharp. I'm always sharp. She'd given him a look that said usually, but had wisely retreated. Now, alone with his thoughts and his phone and the nagging sense that he'd crossed some invisible line last night, James tried to focus on work. The numbers blurred. His mind kept drifting back to that text exchange, to the vulnerability in Maya's words, to the way it had felt to matter to someone, even a stranger. Especially a stranger. Because strangers didn't know about the accident. Didn't look at him with pity or careful distance. Didn't treat him like he might shatter if they mentioned children or families or anything that resembled normal human life. Maya had just needed him. Simply. Directly. And he'd been able to help. No complicated emotions. No grief. No ghosts. Except now, in the daylight, it felt more complicated. His head of security, Marcus, had run the address this morning, standard protocol for any personal interaction James had outside controlled environments. The report sat in James's inbox, unread. He knew what it would say: rough neighborhood, low income, possible safety concerns, recommend no further contact. His lawyer had been more direct when James mentioned, carefully hypothetically, helping someone in need. That's what charitable foundations are for. Personal involvement opens you to liability, fraud, extortion. You're a target, James. Act like it. They were right, of course. Both of them. He should cut contact, maybe set up an anonymous donation if he wanted to help, move on. Instead, he found himself typing, "How's Arya this morning?" He stared at the message. Deleted it. Typed it again. Deleted it again. This is insane, he muttered to his empty office. She's not your responsibility. You don't know her. You helped once. That's enough. But his thumb hovered over her contact name, and he couldn't quite bring himself to delete it either. A knock on his door. Rebecca again, this time with his coffee and a pointed look at the clock. 15 minutes. Right. Yes. I'm ready. She didn't move. Are you okay? Fine. You're not fine. You haven't been fine in 3 years, but usually you're at least functional. Today you're. She gestured at him vaguely. Distracted. I'm handling it. James. Her voice softened. Whatever it is, you don't have to handle it alone. That's what therapy is for. That's what friends are for. He almost laughed. Friends. When was the last time he'd had a conversation that wasn't about business or obligation? When was the last time anyone had asked him how he was and waited for a real answer? Last night. 3 a.m. A stranger named Maya who'd needed formula and somehow made him feel human again. I'm fine, he repeated. Let's go make Johnson regret questioning our acquisition strategy. Rebecca left, and James pocketed his phone without sending the text. He'd helped. It was done. Time to move on. The morning shift at Mel's diner was brutal. Maya's feet ached by 9 a.m., her back screaming from hours of bending, lifting, carrying plates to customers who didn't see her as human, just as a vehicle for food and coffee refills. Miss, this coffee's cold. Where's my toast? I ordered toast 10 minutes ago. Can I get more ketchup? And what's taking so long with my eggs? She smiled, apologized, moved faster, and tried not to think about the fact that she was doing this on 2 hours of sleep and half a piece of toast because Arya had needed her at 6 a.m. and there'd been no time to eat before Mrs. Chun arrived to babysit. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She ignored it. Mel had a strict no-phones policy during shifts, and she couldn't afford to lose this job. But during her 10-minute break in the back alley, standing in the September heat next to the dumpster because the break room was being used for storage, she finally checked. Unknown number, delivery scheduled for 1247 Morrison Street, Unit 3B at 11:30 a.m. Maya's stomach dropped. She frantically scrolled up, but there was no previous context. Then she opened her other messages and found it, a confirmation from Quickmart. Another delivery. More formula. More diapers. And a note in the special instructions. Hope you're taking care of yourself too. J. No, Maya breathed. No, no, no. She pulled up James's contact and typed furiously, Did you send another delivery? The 3 dots appeared immediately. Yes. Why? Because Arya will need more formula eventually. Thought I'd save you the trip. I told you I'd pay you back Friday. You can't just keep sending stuff. A longer pause this time. Then, why not? Maya wanted to scream. Because I'm not a charity case. Because I don't need you to save me. Because this is too much and I don't know you and I can't owe you this much. She hit send before she could stop herself, her hands shaking with an anger she didn't fully understand. It wasn't really about the formula. It was about being seen in her weakness, about someone witnessing her failure and deciding to fix it, about losing the last shred of control she had over her own life. Her phone buzzed. You don't owe me anything. That's not how this works. Everything has a price. So what's yours? What do you want from me? The question hung there, ugly and offensive and rooted in every bad experience she'd had with men who offered help and expected payment in forms she couldn't afford to give. The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, nothing. I want nothing from you. I just wanted to help. Nobody helps for free. I'm sorry you've learned that. The gentleness of his response cracked something in her anger, letting in the exhaustion underneath. Maya slid down the back wall of the diner, sitting on the grimy concrete next to the dumpster, and pressed her palm to her forehead. I can't accept it, she typed. Please cancel the delivery. I can't. It's already out for delivery. Then I won't accept it at the door. Maya. Just her name. Your daughter needs it. I can afford it. Let me help. Why? Why do you even care? Another long pause. She could feel him choosing his words carefully. Because last night, for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I mattered to someone. Even if that someone was a stranger. Even if it was just about formula. It mattered that I could help. Please don't take that away. Maya read the text 3 times, each time feeling her anger deflate a little more. He wasn't trying to save her. He was trying to save himself. She understood that better than she wanted to admit. I'm still paying you back, she finally typed. Okay. All of it. Every cent. Okay. And this is the last time. No more deliveries. The dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. Maya. Mel's voice barked from the back door. Break's over. Table 6 is asking for you. She pocketed her phone and hauled herself up, her body protesting, her mind spinning with the knowledge that a stranger was currently sending supplies to her apartment that she'd explicitly told him not to send. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of orders and complaints and tips that barely covered the gas money to get home. By the time she clocked out at 2 p.m., she was so tired she could barely see straight. Mrs. Chen met her at the door with Arya and a knowing look. A delivery came. Big boxes. I signed for them. I know. Thank you. From a man. Maya's jaw tightened. A friend. Must be a good friend. That's expensive formula. It's complicated. Mrs. Chen patted her arm, her papery hand warm. Honey, when you're drowning, you don't ask the Coast Guard for their credentials. You grab the rope. What if the rope has strings attached? Then you cut the strings. But you don't drown to prove you can swim alone. James left the board meeting feeling hollowed out. Johnson had indeed pushed back. The acquisition was in jeopardy. His CFO was worried about fourth quarter projections. Everything that usually mattered felt distant and small. His phone showed one new message from Maya. I'm still paying you back. No thank you. No acknowledgement that she'd received it. Just defensive anger wrapped around pride that he recognized because he wore the same armor. He typed, you don't have to. Then deleted it. Typed, I know you will. Deleted that too. Finally settled on, okay. Rebecca found him standing by the window, staring out at the city. The acquisition salvageable, but you're going to need to meet with Johnson personally. Wine and dine, make him feel important. Schedule it. I also have your therapist's office calling. You missed another appointment. James said nothing. You need to. I know what I need to do, Rebecca. Thank you. She left quietly, and James pulled up Maya's contact again. He should block it. His security team was right. His lawyer was right. This was messy and complicated, and exactly the kind of personal entanglement he'd sworn to avoid after Catherine died. But Maya's text from last night kept echoing, most people don't see me. He saw her. And for some reason, that mattered more than it should. His phone buzzed. Maya, can I ask you something? James's heart rate picked up. Yes. Why me? There are probably 1,000 people in this city who need help. Why answer my text? He stared at the question, at the vulnerability underneath it. The real question was, why am I worth your time? James sank into his chair and typed slowly, choosing each word with care. Because it was 3 a.m. and I couldn't sleep because I haven't slept well in 3 years. Because your text came exactly when I needed to feel like I could do something that mattered. Because you said please and I haven't heard anyone genuinely need something from me, not my money, not my company, just me, in longer than I can remember. Because your daughter is 4 months old and mine was 6 months old when I lost her, and maybe helping you helps me remember that babies are supposed to live and grow and need things. Because I'm so tired of being alone in my head, and your text made me feel connected to something real for the first time since my wife died. He read it back. Too honest. Too raw. Too much. Deleted it. Typed instead, right place, right time, I guess. Hit send. Hated himself for the cowardice. Maya stood in her apartment, surrounded by boxes of supplies she didn't ask for and couldn't refuse, and read James's response. Right place, right time, I guess. It felt like a deflection. Like there was a real answer hiding behind polite distance. She understood that too. Thank you, she typed finally. For the formula. For giving a damn. For everything. Then before she could stop herself, but no more deliveries. Please. I need to be able to do this myself. His response came quickly, I understand. Do you? Yes. Pride is expensive. But sometimes it's all we have left. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. He did understand. Maybe too well. I should go. Arya needs me. Okay. Take care, Maya. She stared at that text, take care, and felt the finality of it. This was goodbye. Thank you, goodbye, nice knowing you, back to our separate lives. It's what she wanted. What she'd asked for. So why did it feel like losing something she'd only just found? Have you ever pushed away help because accepting it felt like admitting defeat? What did it cost you? That night, James sat in his penthouse and didn't text. Maya sat in her studio and didn't text. Both of them stared at their phones, at a contact name that represented something neither could name. Connection, maybe, or hope, or just the possibility that being seen in your worst moment didn't have to mean being abandoned. But neither reached out. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't being alone. It's discovering you don't want to be. 3 days passed. Maya worked her shifts, fed her daughter, paid Mrs. Chun what she could for babysitting, and tried not to think about the silence from James. She'd asked for space. She'd gotten it. That was good. It felt terrible. On Saturday afternoon, Maya's phone died halfway through her shift at the nursing home. She'd forgotten to charge it the night before, or maybe the charger was finally giving out, like everything else in her life that was held together with hope and duct tape. "Can I borrow your charger?" she asked Tammy. Different phone. "Sorry, babe." Maya finished her shift with a dead phone and a growing sense of unease. Mrs. Chun had Arya until 6. It was fine. Everything was fine. She stopped at the corner store on the way home, counting coins for cheap charging cable, when her phone suddenly powered on with the last gasp of battery life. 5 missed calls from Mrs. Chun. 3 voicemails. Maya's blood went cold. She fumbled to listen to the first message. "Maya dear, I'm so sorry. I'm at Mercy General. I had a little spell. They're saying it's my blood pressure, but I'm okay. Don't worry. But Arya is here with me and visiting hours end at 8 and I don't know if they'll let her stay and..." The phone died again. No. Maya's hands shook as she tried to restart it. Nothing. Dead. She ran the 6 blocks to her apartment, burst through the door, found her old backup charger, the one that barely worked, and plugged in her phone with shaking fingers. It took 3 agonizing minutes to power on. More missed calls. A text from Mrs. Chen's neighbor. "She's okay, but they're keeping her overnight for observation. What should we do about the baby?" Maya called the hospital, was transferred 4 times, finally got through to Mrs. Chen's room. "Oh, thank God," Mrs. Chen's voice was weak but steady. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I was feeling dizzy and I called 911 and they brought us both here and..." "Is Arya okay?" "She's perfect. Sleeping right now. But honey, they're not going to let her stay once visiting hours end. Do you have someone who can pick her up?" Maya's mind raced through her options. Her mother, no, she was 4 hours away and hadn't answered Maya's last 3 texts. Derek, absolutely not. Tammy, working a double. Jessica, ghosted her weeks ago. "I can come get her," Maya said. "I just need to." But what? She didn't have a car. The bus would take an hour, and it was already 5:30. By the time she got there, got Arya, got them both home, it would be past 8. And Mrs. Chin needed someone to stay with her, to make sure she was really okay too. Maya felt the walls closing in, that familiar sensation of juggling too many impossible things with too few hands. Her eyes fell on her phone, on the contact list, on a name she'd sworn not to call. "Mrs. Chun, give me 10 minutes. I'll figure something out." She hung up and stared at James's contact. Her thumb hovered over it. This was insane. She'd told him no more help. She'd drawn a boundary. She'd made it clear she needed to handle things herself. But Arya was at a hospital with an elderly woman who was being admitted overnight, and Maya was 6 miles away with no car and no options and no pride left to protect. She typed, "I know this is crazy and you probably think I'm taking advantage, but I don't know who else to ask." Deleted it. Too defensive. "Are you busy right now?" Too casual. "I need help." Too vague. Finally, desperately, "My babysitter's in the hospital and they won't let my daughter stay past visiting hours. I don't have a car and I can't get there in time. I know I said no more help, but I'm desperate and I don't know what else to do." She hit send before she could second guess it, then immediately regretted it. He probably wouldn't even see it. Or he'd see it and ignore it because she'd pushed him away. Or he'd help and she'd owe him even more and... Her phone rang. "James." Maya answered with shaking hands. "Hello." Where's the hospital? His voice was sharp, focused, already moving. Mercy, General. But you don't have to. I'm 20 minutes away. What's your babysitter's name? Mrs. Chun. Room 447. But James. I'll get Arya. Text me your address again. I'm bringing her to you. You don't have to do that. You could just. Maya. His voice softened slightly. I'm already in my car. Text me the address. We'll figure out the rest later. The line went dead. Maya stood in her apartment, phone in hand, and felt something crack in her chest, relief mixed with shame mixed with gratitude she didn't know how to hold. She texted him her address, then called Mrs. Chun back. Someone's coming to get Arya. A friend. His name is James. A man. A good man, Maya said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Well, it's about time someone showed up for you, honey. James took the corners too fast, his mind racing faster than his car. He shouldn't be doing this. He knew he shouldn't be doing this. This was exactly the kind of personal involvement his entire support system had warned him against. But Maya's text had landed like a punch to the gut. I'm desperate and I don't know what else to do. He remembered that feeling. The night of the accident, standing in the hospital, being told there was nothing more they could do, feeling his entire world collapse and having no one to call because Catherine had been his person and she was gone and Emma was gone and he was alone in a way that made breathing feel impossible. If someone had shown up for him that night, anyone, even a stranger, it might have made the difference between survival and drowning. He pulled into the hospital parking garage at 6:14, took the elevator to the 4th floor, and found room 447. An elderly Asian woman lay in the bed, hooked up to monitors. A baby, Arya, he assumed, slept in a portable carrier next to her. Mrs. Chun looked up as he entered, her eyes sharp despite her obvious fatigue. You must be James. Yes, ma'am. I'm here for Arya. She studied him for a long moment, his expensive suit, his careful distance, the way he looked at the baby but didn't immediately reach for her. You're the one who sent the formula. It wasn't a question. James nodded. Why? Because Maya needed it. That's not why. Try again. James met her gaze and saw the protectiveness there, the maternal instinct that extended beyond blood. Because helping her made me feel human again. And I hadn't felt human in a long time. Mrs. Chen's expression softened. Better. You can take her. Car seat's there. Do you know how to install it? James looked at the infant carrier and felt panic rise in his throat. I used to. I think I remember. You think? Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose. That baby's precious cargo. You better know. I'll figure it out. There's a YouTube video. Everyone uses YouTube now. She reached out and touched his hand. Thank you for coming. Maya, she's proud. Too proud. But she's a good mother. The best. She just needs someone to see that. I see it, James said quietly. He carefully lifted the car seat, surprised by how light it was, how fragile. Arya stirred but didn't wake, her face peaceful in sleep. She looked so much like Emma, or maybe all babies look the same to grieving fathers. Either way, his hands shook slightly as he carried her out. The car seat installation took 15 minutes and a YouTube video, and James was sweating by the time he checked it 3 times to make sure it was secure. Arya woke up halfway through and started crying, a sound that pierced straight through his chest and landed in places he'd thought were dead. It's okay, he murmured, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to her or himself. We're going to your mom. Just hold on. She cried the entire 23-minute drive to Maya's apartment, and James felt every second of it like a knife. The sound triggered memories he'd worked hard to bury. Emma crying in the hospital, those last hours, the machines beeping while his daughter screamed, and there was nothing he could do, nothing anyone could do. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel by the time he pulled up to Maya's building. Maya was waiting outside when James's car pulled up, a Tesla, sleek and black and so obviously expensive that several neighbors stopped to stare. He got out, and she saw him for the first time in daylight. Tall, maybe late 30s, dark hair slightly messed from running his hands through it. Expensive suit but loosened tie. And eyes, God, his eyes looked haunted even from a distance. She's been crying, he said as Maya rushed to the car. I don't know if I did something wrong or... You didn't. Maya opened the back door and saw Arya red-faced and furious. She just doesn't like cars. Thank you. Thank you so much. She fumbled with the car seat buckles, her hands shaking too much to work them properly. Here. James reached around her, his hand steady despite the tremor she'd seen in the moments before. He released the buckles efficiently, and Maya lifted Arya out. The baby's cries immediately softened against her mother's shoulder, little hiccuping sobs replacing the full wails. See, Maya said, bouncing her gently. You're okay. Mama's here. James watched them, something unreadable crossing his face. Do you want to come up? Maya asked, then immediately regretted it. I mean, you don't have to. You've already done so much. But I should at least offer you water or something after you drove all the way here and... Okay, James said quietly. Okay. I'll come up. Just for a minute. The walk up 3 flights of stairs felt eternal. Maya was hyper-aware of everything he would see, the peeling paint, the flickering hallway light, the sound of a couple fighting behind door 2A, the smell of old cooking grease that never quite left the building. It's not much, she said as she unlocked her door. Actually, it's barely anything. But it's home. James followed her inside, and she watched his eyes take in her reality. The studio apartment with its mismatched furniture, the porta-crib next to her bed, the kitchen that was really just a corner with appliances, the window AC unit that had finally died completely. He didn't say anything, but she saw something shift in his expression, not pity exactly. More like recognition. Can I hold her? The question came out rough, like he dragged it from somewhere deep. Maya blinked. Arya. If that's okay. I haven't held a baby since, he stopped. You can say no. Maya looked at him, at the naked vulnerability on his face, and carefully transferred Arya to his arms. James took her with a gentleness that spoke of muscle memory, his hands positioning themselves automatically. Arya, exhausted from crying, settled against his chest and promptly fell asleep. And James stood frozen in Maya's tiny apartment, holding a stranger's baby, and started crying. Silent tears at first, then shaking shoulders, then a grief so raw that Maya felt like she was witnessing something sacred and private and absolutely not meant for her eyes. I'm sorry, he gasped. I'm sorry, I can't. Hey. Maya touched his arm gently. It's okay. You're okay. I'm not. I haven't held a baby in 3 years. I couldn't, after Emma died, I couldn't even look at babies. And now I'm standing here holding your daughter, and I feel like I'm drowning and... James. Breathe. Just breathe. He did, shuddering breaths while Arya slept peacefully against his chest, oblivious to the storm she'd caused. Maya guided him to her bed, the only place to sit besides the floor, and he sank onto it, still holding Arya, still crying quietly. I'm sorry, he said again. This is inappropriate. I should go. You're not going anywhere until you catch your breath. Maya sat next to him, close enough that their shoulders touched. And there's nothing inappropriate about grief. They sat in silence, the only sounds Arya's soft breathing and the ambient noise of the building around them. Life continuing, unaware and uncaring of the 2 broken people trying to hold themselves together in a studio apartment. Finally, James spoke, his voice wrecked. Her name was Emma. My daughter. She had this way of gripping my finger when I held her, like she was holding on to me. And after the accident, I could still feel it. Phantom grip. Like she was still there, still holding on, but when I looked down my hands were empty. Maya felt tears slip down her own cheeks. What was she like? Perfect. Loud. She had Catherine's eyes, my wife. Blue-gray, like the ocean. And she would smile in her sleep, these little dream smiles. I used to wonder what babies dream about. He looked down at Arya. I still wonder. Probably milk and comfort and their mother's heartbeats. Simple things. The best things, Maya said softly. James finally looked at her, his eyes red-rimmed and raw. I'm sorry for falling apart in your apartment. I'm not. This is the first real thing that's happened to me in months. Maybe years. Real. Yeah. No pretending. No keeping it together. Just human. He huffed a laugh that was half sob. Is this what human feels like? It's awful. It really is, Maya agreed. But it's better than nothing. They sat there as the afternoon light shifted, as Arya slept on, as something fragile and undefined settled between them. Not romance, not yet, but recognition. Two people who'd been drowning alone discovering that maybe treading water together was possible. Can I ask you something? Maya said finally. Anything. Why did you really come today? You could have sent a car service. You could have just said no. Why show up yourself? James was quiet for a long moment, then, because when Catherine and Emma died, everyone sent cards and flowers and donations. But no one showed up. No one sat with me. No one held my hand while I fell apart. They gave me space and sympathy and distance. And I've been alone ever since. He looked at her. I didn't want you to be alone today. Maya felt something crack open in her chest, some wall she'd been maintaining crumbling under the weight of his honesty. Thank you, she whispered. For showing up. Thank you for letting me. Arya stirred, making small fussy sounds. James carefully handed her back to Maya, and their hands brushed in the transfer, brief contact that felt electric and terrifying and exactly right. I should go, James said, standing. Let you two rest. James. Maya stood too, Arya on her hip. Would you? I mean, you don't have to. But would you want to stay? For dinner? It's just going to be spaghetti from a box, but... She trailed off, watching him process the invitation. It was too much, too fast, too intimate. They barely knew each other. This was crazy. Okay, he said quietly. I'd like that. And just like that, the boundary they'd both been maintaining, the careful distance, the transactional help, the emotional walls, crumbled completely. Neither of them knew what came next. But for the first time in years, both of them were willing to find out. When was the last time someone truly showed up for you, not with money or solutions, but just with presence? How did it change you? Act 5, Backstory Unveiled. The spaghetti was terrible. Maya had apologized 3 times for the overcooked noodles, the jar sauce that tasted like tin, the lack of garlic bread or salad or anything resembling a proper meal. James ate it like it was the best thing he'd tasted in years. Maybe it was. Not because of the food, but because he was sitting at someone's mismatched table, using chipped plates, listening to a baby babble from her bouncer, and feeling something other than the hollow emptiness that had become his default. So, Maya said, twirling spaghetti around her fork. Billionaire, huh? James nearly choked. What? I Googled you. After the formula thing. Wanted to make sure you weren't a serial killer. She shrugged, not quite meeting his eyes. James Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Technologies. Net worth north of $2 billion. Featured in Forbes, Fortune, all those magazines I can't afford to buy. You could have asked. Would you have told me the truth? James set down his fork. Probably not. People get weird when they know. Weird how? They either want something or they treat me like I'm not real. Like money makes you less human somehow. He met her gaze. You asked me for $30. Not $30,000. Not a job or investment or introduction. Just enough to feed your daughter. That was refreshing. Well, now I feel stupid. I could have asked for way more. The joke fell flat, and Maya winced. Sorry. Bad humor is my coping mechanism. Mine is buying formula for strangers at 3 a.m., apparently. They both smiled, small, careful smiles that acknowledged the absurdity of how they'd ended up here. Arya chose that moment to start fussing, her bouncer movements becoming more agitated. Maya stood immediately, That automatic mother response James remembered from Catherine. "Do you mind?" Maya gestured to the half-eaten plates. "Go. I've got this." He cleared the table while Maya tended to Arya, and found himself washing dishes in her tiny sink, staring out the window at the alley below. This apartment was smaller than his closet. The water pressure was terrible. The dish soap was watered down to stretch further. And yet, it felt more like a home than his penthouse ever had. "You don't have to do that," Maya said from behind him. "I want to." He rinsed the last plate and turned. Maya was sitting on the bed, the only real furniture, with Arya against her shoulder, patting her back gently. "Can I ask you something now?" "Fair's fair." "Arya's father. Where is he?" Maya's expression hardened slightly. "Derek? Gone. He stuck around through the pregnancy, barely. Lots of promises about stepping up, being a family, doing the right thing. Then Arya was born and suddenly reality hit. Babies are expensive. They're exhausting. They require sacrifice." She kissed Arya's head. "He left when she was 2 weeks old. Texted me that he wasn't ready to be a dad, and blocked my number." "Has he met her since?" "Once. He showed up 6 weeks ago drunk, wanting to see his daughter. I let him hold her for 5 minutes while he cried about how hard his life was. Then he left and I haven't heard from him since." Her voice was flat, emotionless in the way that meant the emotions were too big to show. Except for last week when he threatened to file for custody because he heard through his friend that I was seeing someone rich. James felt cold rage settle in his chest. "He threatened you?" "Through his lawyer, yeah. It's a bluff. He doesn't actually want custody. He just wants to make sure I stay struggling so he feels better about abandoning us." She looked up at James. "That's why I freaked out about the deliveries. Not because I wasn't grateful. Because I was terrified Derek would use it against me." "He won't." James's voice was hard. "I'll make sure of it." "You can't promise that." "Yes, I can. I have very good lawyers." Maya shook her head. "This is what I was afraid of. You swooping in to fix things. I don't need a savior, James." "I know. But you do need someone in your corner. There's a difference." She studied him for a long moment. "Is there?" "I think so." James moved to sit in the rickety chair across from her bed, wanting to close the distance but respecting her space. "Saviors make you dependent. People in your corner make you stronger. One takes your power. The other adds to it." That sounds like something a therapist would say. "My therapist says a lot of things. I don't usually listen." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But I've been thinking about it since we started talking. About why I wanted to help you. And I think it's because you didn't ask me to save you. You asked me to help you save yourself. That's different." Arya had fallen asleep against Maya's shoulder, her tiny body relaxed and trusting. Maya adjusted her gently, laying her in the porta-crib, before returning to sit on the edge of the bed. "Can I tell you something?" Her voice was quiet, vulnerable in a way he hadn't heard before. "Please. I used to be someone." She gestured around the apartment. "Not this. I was in nursing school. Top of my class. I had plans, pediatric nursing, maybe become a nurse practitioner eventually. I was going to help kids, make a difference. I had scholarships, a part-time job that actually paid decently, roommates I liked. I had a life. What happened? Derek happened. And Arya happened. And suddenly I had to choose between my future and hers, and it wasn't even a choice. But some days..." Her voice cracked. "Some days I look at her and I love her so much it physically hurts. And some days I look at her and I think about everything I gave up, and I hate myself for even thinking it because she didn't ask to be born and she deserves better than a mother who resents her sometimes." James felt his throat tighten. "That doesn't make you a bad mother. Doesn't it?" "No. It makes you human. You're allowed to grieve your old life while building a new one." Maya wiped at her eyes roughly. When did you become so wise about feelings? I'm not. I'm terrible at feelings. I've spent 3 years avoiding them. He paused. Can I show you something? She nodded. James pulled out his phone, scrolled through his photos, past the screenshots of financial reports and business meetings, until he found it. The album he couldn't delete, but rarely opened. He turned the phone toward Maya. Catherine, radiant in a summer dress, laughing at the camera. Emma, tiny and perfect, asleep in her arms. They're beautiful, Maya whispered. They were everything. James's voice was rough. Catherine and I met in college. She was studying education, wanted to teach kindergarten. She said kids were the only people who still believed in magic, and someone needed to protect that. He smiled sadly. She would have loved teaching. She would have been amazing at it. What happened? Emma was 6 months old. Catherine was driving to her mother's house for the weekend. I was supposed to go with them, but I had a board meeting I couldn't miss. He swallowed hard. Some drunk driver ran a red light. T-boned her car on the driver's side. Catherine died instantly. Emma. His voice broke. Emma held on for 3 days. They said she probably didn't feel anything, that she was on so much medication. But I could hear her crying sometimes, and I couldn't. He stopped, pressing his palms to his eyes. Maya moved without thinking, sitting next to him, her hand finding his. You don't have to. I want to. I need to. James looked at her, his eyes wet. I held her while she died. Emma. I was holding her and I felt her stop breathing and I knew that was the moment my life split in two. Before and after. And everything after has just been surviving. How did you do it? How did you keep going? I didn't, really. I built walls. Made work my entire personality. Turned my grief into business strategy. I threw money at every problem except the real one, that I was so goddamn lonely I couldn't remember what it felt like to connect with another human being. He squeezed her hand. Until a desperate single mom texted me at 3 a.m. asking for baby formula. Maya let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. That's the saddest meet cute I've ever heard. It's the only one I've got. They sat in silence, hands intertwined, the weight of their respective traumas settling between them. Not crushing, just present, acknowledged, shared. Can I ask you something else? Maya said finally. Anything. The penthouse. The locked bedroom. You've kept everything exactly as it was, haven't you? James stiffened. How did you? Because I can't throw away Derek's sweatshirt. It's in the back of my closet. He left it here and I keep meaning to donate it, but I can't because it reminds me of when I still believed in something. She looked at him. We hold on to the past because letting go feels like losing them all over again. Yes. The word came out barely above a whisper. My therapist says I need to process the space. Let go of the shrine I've built. But every time I think about opening that door, about packing up Catherine's things, I can't breathe. What if you didn't have to do it alone? James looked at her sharply. What? I'm just saying, maybe it's easier with someone. Someone who won't judge you for falling apart. Someone who gets it. You barely know me. I know you showed up for me today when you could have said no. I know you cried holding my daughter because you miss yours. I know you wash dishes like someone who's trying to be useful. I know enough. James studied her face, this woman who'd accidentally texted him a week ago and somehow become the most important person in his life. You're serious. I'm terrified. But yes, I'm serious. Why would you do that? Because Mrs. Chun was right. I'm drowning. And you're drowning. And maybe if we tread water together, we both stay afloat. She smiled slightly. Plus, you're apparently rich enough to afford good childcare while I finish nursing school, so I'm not above strategic friendship. The joke broke the tension. James laughed, really laughed, for the first time in recent memory. Strategic friendship. Is that what this is? I don't know what this is, Maya admitted. But I know I don't want it to end. Do you? James looked around her small apartment, at the sleeping baby, at the woman who'd accidentally become his lifeline, at the tiny space that somehow felt bigger than his entire penthouse. No, he said quietly. I don't want it to end. Then it doesn't have to. They talked until midnight, trading stories like currency. Maya told him about her mother's disappointment, about the nursing program she'd loved, about the moment she'd first held Arya and realized she would die for this tiny human she'd just met. James told her about building his company from nothing, about the pressure of being responsible for thousands of jobs, about the surreal loneliness of having everything and feeling empty. Do you ever wish you could go back? Maya asked. To before. Every day. But I'd also never wish away Emma's 6 months. Even knowing how it ends, I'd choose to love her again. He paused. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. I'd choose Arya 1,000 times, even knowing how hard it would be. She yawned, exhaustion finally catching up. Sorry. I'm not used to staying up this late anymore. I should go. James stood, reluctant to leave this bubble they'd created. Thank you for dinner. For sharing your story. For. He gestured vaguely. All of this. Thank you for showing up. Maya walked him to the door, then impulsively hugged him. I mean it. Thank you. James froze for a moment, then carefully hugged her back. She was small and warm and real, and he felt something in his chest that might have been hope. Can I see you again? He asked when they pulled apart. Not because of formula or emergencies. Just because. I'd like that. Tomorrow? I could bring lunch. We could go to the park with Arya. Maya smiled, the first genuine, unguarded smile he'd seen from her. It's a date. Well, not a date. A friend date. A strategic friendship date. Strategic friendship date, James repeated, grinning. I'll put it in my calendar. He left feeling lighter than he had in 3 years, his phone already pulling up instructions for what babies Arya's age might enjoy at the park. Behind him, Maya closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing with something that felt dangerously like happiness. Neither of them saw the figure watching from across the street, taking photos with a long lens. Derek's lawyer would want evidence, after all. Sunday morning arrived with rare September sunshine, the kind that made even Maya's rundown neighborhood look almost charming. She'd been awake since 5, Arya's usual wake-up call, but instead of the usual exhaustion, she felt something close to excitement. A strategic friendship date. She smiled at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror, then immediately felt foolish. It wasn't a real date. James was just being kind. This was about companionship and mutual support, not romance. Still, she changed her shirt 3 times. You're being ridiculous, she told Arya, who was having tummy time on a blanket. He's seen us at our worst. There's no impressing him now. Arya blew a raspberry in response. Maya's phone buzzed, outside. No rush. She looked out the window and felt her stomach flip. James stood next to his Tesla, but instead of his usual suit, he wore jeans and a simple blue t-shirt that made him look younger, more approachable. More human. She grabbed Arya, the diaper bag, and her courage, and headed downstairs. Hey, James said when she emerged. His smile was nervous, boyish. I wasn't sure what babies need for park trips, so I may have over-prepared. He opened the trunk to reveal a new stroller, expensive, with all-terrain wheels and a sun canopy. A picnic basket. A blanket. Sunscreen. A first aid kit. Maya laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. You definitely over-prepared. Too much. It's perfect. She touched his arm briefly. Thank you. The drive to the park was easier than yesterday's hospital run. Arya was content, and Maya found herself relaxing into the leather seat, watching the city transform as they moved from her neighborhood into one with tree-lined streets and renovated brownstones. I used to bring Emma here, James said quietly as he pulled into the parking lot. Catherine loved this park. She said it had the best baby swings in the city. We don't have to, if it's too hard. No. He cut the engine, turned to face her. I want to. I think I need to make new memories here. Good ones. The park was moderately crowded with Sunday families, Fathers pushing strollers, mothers spreading blankets, toddlers shrieking with joy at the playground. Maya felt acutely aware of how they must look, her in her Target clearance outfit, James in clothes that probably cost more than her rent, and Arya between them in a stroller that screamed money. "People are staring," she murmured. "Let them." James seemed unbothered as he pushed the stroller toward a shaded area near the pond. "Is this okay?" "It's beautiful." They spread the blanket under an oak tree, and James unpacked the picnic basket with a focused intensity of someone who'd spent serious time planning this. Sandwiches from a deli Maya recognized from magazines. Fresh fruit. Sparkling water. And, "You brought baby food?" Maya stared at the organic puree pouches. The internet said 4 months is when some babies start solids. I didn't know if Arya had, so I thought. He trailed off, looking suddenly uncertain. "Is that overstepping?" "No. It's thoughtful." Maya felt her throat tighten. When was the last time someone had anticipated her needs without being asked? She hasn't started yet. Her pediatrician said to wait until 6 months. But this is really sweet. They ate in comfortable silence, watching Arya track the movement of leaves above them with wide-eyed fascination. Other families orbited around them, a reminder that life continued, babies grew, people moved forward. "I haven't been here in 3 years, James said suddenly. I couldn't. Every time I drove past, I'd remember Catherine laughing while Emma giggled on the swings. It hurt too much. And now, it still hurts. But it's different. Like the pain has company now." He looked at her. "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." Maya adjusted Arya's sun hat. "After Derek left, I couldn't go anywhere we'd been together. Which was hard because we'd been everywhere, restaurants, parks, even the grocery store felt like a minefield of memories. So I just stopped going out. Worked and came home. That was it." "What changed?" "I ran out of options. Couldn't afford to keep avoiding places just because they reminded me of my failure." She smiled sadly. "Poverty has a way of forcing you to face things." James flinched slightly. "Maya. I'm not saying that for sympathy. I'm just being honest." She met his gaze. "You asked me yesterday why I was sharing all this with you. The truth? I'm tired of pretending. Tired of performing fine for everyone. With you, I don't have to. You've already seen the worst. There's nothing left to hide." "I feel the same way." He reached over, his hand finding hers on the blanket. "Everyone in my life wants me to move on. Get back out there. Start dating. Have another family, like Emma and Catherine were replaceable." His voice hardened. "But they weren't. They aren't. And pretending I'm okay when I'm not, it's exhausting. So we don't pretend. Not with each other. Deal." They shook on it solemnly, and Maya felt something shift, like they'd just made a pact that went deeper than friendship. An hour later, James was lying on the blanket with Arya on his chest, both of them drowsy in the dappled sunlight. Maya sat nearby, taking photos on her phone because the image was too perfect not to capture. This billionaire CEO completely undone by a 4-month-old who drooled on his expensive shirt. "She's heavier than she looks," James murmured. "She's solid. My little tank." Maya smiled. "You're good with her." "Muscle memory, I think. Emma was bigger, 6 months versus 4, but the basics are the same." He gently patted Arya's back. "I forgot how much I loved this. Just holding a baby. Feeling their heartbeat. The trust they have is." He stopped, his voice thick. "Terrifying," Maya supplied. "Yeah. That's parenthood. Constant terror wrapped in overwhelming love." Catherine used to say that. She'd watch me panic over every little thing, Emma's breathing, her temperature, whether she was hitting milestones, and she'd just laugh and say, "Welcome to parenthood. It's all terror and love from here on out. He smiled at the memory. She was fearless. I was the anxious one. I'm anxious too. Every decision feels massive. What if I'm feeding her wrong? What if the daycare I can afford is damaging her? What if my working 3 jobs means I'm never present enough? Maya pulled her knees to her chest. Sometimes I lie awake at night cataloging all the ways I'm failing her. You're not failing her. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because she's thriving. Look at her. She's healthy, happy, secure. She knows she's loved. That's not failure, Maya. That's success. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. You sound very sure. I am sure. Because I see the way she looks at you. The way she calms when you hold her. The way she trusts you completely. James's voice softened. Emma looked at Catherine that way. It's how babies look at good mothers. I wish I could believe that. Then let me believe it for you until you can believe it yourself. They fell quiet, watching Arya drift toward sleep, safe and content on James's chest. Around them, the park buzzed with life. Children playing, dogs barking, couples walking hand in hand. Normal. Ordinary. Everything they'd both lost and were slowly finding again. James. Maya said after a while. Why hasn't there been anyone since Catherine? I mean, I'm sure people have tried. You're successful, attractive, presumably not a serial killer. He laughed. Presumably. I'm 95% sure at this point. I'll take those odds. His smile faded. To answer your question, I've had offers. My mother's tried setting me up. Rebecca's dropped hints about eligible women. But the thought of dating, of pretending to be interested in someone, of making small talk over dinner. He shook his head. It felt like betrayal. Like I'd be cheating on Catherine's memory. And now. He looked at her, something vulnerable in his expression. Now I'm lying in a park with a baby on my chest and a woman I barely know, and it feels more real than anything has in 3 years. I'm not sure what that means. Maya's heart hammered. James. I'm not saying, he started again. I'm not trying to make this complicated. I just want you to know that this matters to me. You matter to me. However you want to define what this is. Strategic friendship, Maya said, her voice barely steady. Right. Strategic friendship. His eyes said something different. Arya stirred, whimpering slightly, and the moment broke. Maya reached over to soothe her, her hand brushing James's chest, and the casual intimacy of it felt monumental. I should probably feed her soon, Maya said. She'll be hungry. There's a family restroom by the playground. Private, if you need it. You really did research this trip. I may have made a checklist. Maya laughed, gathering Arya into her arms. Of course you did. Control freak. Recovering control freak, he corrected. I'm working on it. While Maya fed Arya in the family restroom, James stayed with their things, watching other families and feeling the familiar ache of what he'd lost. But underneath it was something new, hope maybe. Or at least the possibility of hope. His phone buzzed. Rebecca, everything okay? You missed your usual Sunday evening check-in. James typed back, fine. Took the day off. You never take days off. Are you sick? No. Just living. A long pause, then good. It's about time. He pocketed his phone and saw Maya returning, Arya alert and content in her arms. She was smiling, really smiling, and James felt something in his chest that might have been his heart remembering how to feel. She's good for another hour at least, Maya said, settling back on the blanket. Want to walk around the pond? Apparently babies love water. Lead the way. They strolled slowly, James pushing the stroller, Maya pointing out ducks for Arya's benefit. To any observer, they looked like a family, complete, normal, whole. James knew they weren't. But for an afternoon, he could pretend. "Can I ask you something personal?" Maya said as they paused to watch a turtle sunbathing. "Haven't we moved past the point of asking permission?" "Fair point." She took a breath. "The money. Does it make you happy?" James considered lying, deflecting. Chose honesty instead. "No. It makes life easier, but not better. I thought after Catherine died that I could fill the void with work, with success, with building something that mattered. But at the end of the day, I go home to an empty penthouse and realize I've built a prison, not a life. Then why keep doing it? Because I don't know what else to do. Work is safe. Work has rules and goals and measurable outcomes. Feelings don't." "Feelings are terrifying," Maya agreed. "But they're also the only thing that makes life worth living." "When did you get so wise?" "Somewhere between the third overdue bill and the fourth sleepless night." She smiled. Rock bottom has a way of clarifying things. They walked in comfortable silence, and James found himself watching her more than the scenery. The way she unconsciously swayed even when Arya was in the stroller, the way she bit her lip when deep in thought, the way sunlight caught in her hair and made her look almost ethereal. He was in dangerous territory. He knew it. This was supposed to be friendship, support, mutual survival. Not whatever was growing in his chest every time she smiled. But God, he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this alive. They stayed at the park until Arya got fussy, then drove back to Maya's neighborhood with the windows down and music playing softly. James pulled up outside her building and killed the engine, neither of them moving to get out. "I had a really good day," Maya said finally. "Me too. Can we do this again? The park, I mean. Or something else. Whatever." "I'd like that." James turned to face her. "Maya, I know we're calling this strategic friendship, and maybe that's all it is. But I need you to know, you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever." "What's that?" "A reason to show up. Not just physically, but emotionally. You make me want to be present, to feel things, to try again." He reached over, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that was both tender and terrifying. "Thank you for that." Maya's breath caught. "James. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." She looked at him, really looked, and saw past the walls and wealth to the broken man underneath who was trying so hard to be whole again. She saw herself reflected back. "You make me feel seen," she whispered. "Like I'm more than just a struggling single mom. Like I'm Maya, complicated and flawed and still worth showing up for." "You are. You're so much more than you give yourself credit for." They sat in the car, the moment stretching between them like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. "Not yet. But soon." "I should get her inside," Maya said reluctantly. "Before she realizes she's tired and loses her mind." "Right. Of course." James helped her unload the stroller, the diaper bag, the leftover picnic supplies. At her building's entrance, she turned back. "Text me later? So I know you got home okay." "You're worried about me?" Strategic friendship goes both ways. He smiled, the real unguarded smile she was learning to cherish. "I'll text." And he did. Just, "Home safe. Thank you for today." Maya responded, "Thank you for showing up." Again. Then, because she was feeling brave, "You're becoming kind of important to me, James Hartwell." His response came quickly, "Good. Because you're becoming essential to me, Maya Winters." Neither of them slept well that night, but for the first time in years, it wasn't because of nightmares. It was because of hope. When was the last time you let yourself hope for something, really hope, knowing it might hurt if it doesn't work out? Was it worth the risk? The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of text messages, coffee dates, and park visits that felt less like strategic friendship and more like falling. Maya tried not to examine it too closely. She was too busy working her shifts, studying for the nursing exam she decided to retake, and navigating the unfamiliar territory of having someone who actually showed up. James came by most evenings after work, still in his suit, loosening his tie as he climbed her stairs, and they'd split a pizza or Chinese takeout while Aria played on her blanket between them. He never stayed past 9. Never pushed for more than she was ready to give. But his presence was becoming as essential as oxygen, and that terrified her. "You're glowing," Tammy said one afternoon at the diner, nudging Maya with her hip. "That billionaire boyfriend treating you right?" "He's not my boyfriend." "Sure, honey. And I'm not addicted to reality TV." Tammy grinned. "Just be careful, okay? Rich guys have a way of making promises they don't keep." Maya wanted to argue, but Derek's ghost whispered agreement in her ear. James, meanwhile, was discovering what it felt like to have something to lose again. He found himself checking his phone constantly for Maya's texts, rescheduling meetings so he could make it to her apartment by 7, researching developmental milestones for 4-month-olds with an intensity his staff found both concerning and amusing. "You're different," his brother Michael said over their monthly dinner. "Happier, maybe. Or at least less dead inside." "Thanks for that." "I'm serious. What changed?" James considered deflecting. "Chose honesty. I met someone." Michael's eyebrows shot up. "Someone? Like a romantic someone?" "It's complicated." "It's always complicated with you. Who is she?" "Her name's Maya. She's..." How did he explain? "She's a single mom. She accidentally texted me a few weeks ago asking for help, and we've been," he gestured vaguely, talking, and spending time together." "Does she know about Catherine and Emma?" "Yes." Michael studied him carefully. "And you're okay? With being around a baby?" "I'm better than okay. James stopped, the words catching. "I'm alive again, Mike. For the first time since the accident, I actually want to wake up in the morning." "Then what's the problem?" "I'm terrified of screwing this up. Of letting her down. He swallowed hard. Of loving her and losing her." "You might," Michael said gently. "That's the risk of caring about anyone. But the alternative is living in that tomb you call a penthouse, going through the motions until you die. Is that really safer?" James had no answer. On a Wednesday evening, 3 weeks and 2 days after their park date, everything shattered. Maya was at work when her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her step outside during her break. "Hello. Is this Maya Winters?" A woman's voice, professional and cold. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Patricia Chun. I'm an attorney with Morrison & Associates. I'm calling on behalf of Derek Thompson regarding custody arrangements for Aria Thompson." Maya's blood went cold. "What?" "Mr. Thompson is filing for joint custody. We've been attempting to reach you via certified mail, but since those attempts have been unsuccessful, I'm calling directly. We have a court date scheduled for next month. He doesn't want custody. He abandoned us." Mr. Thompson maintains that he's been trying to establish a relationship with his daughter, but you've been deliberately keeping her from him. Papers rustled. "He's provided evidence of your unstable living situation, inconsistent work schedule, and concerning relationship with," a pause, "a much older wealthy man whose intentions are unclear." Maya felt like the ground was tilting. "What evidence?" "Photographs. Documentation. Text messages showing you accepting substantial gifts from this individual. Mr. Thompson is concerned about his daughter's welfare and the sort of environment you're exposing her to." "That's insane. James has been nothing but..." "I'm not here to debate the merits, Ms. Winters. I'm simply informing you that you'll need to appear in court on October 24th with legal representation." If you fail to appear, Mr. Thompson will pursue full custody. The lawyer's voice softened slightly, almost sympathetic. I suggest you get an attorney. A good one. The line went dead. Maya stood in the parking lot, phone clutched in shaking hands, feeling her entire world crack apart. Derek was coming for Arya. Not because he wanted her, he'd made that clear, but because he wanted to hurt Maya. And he was using James to do it. She called James immediately, her voice shaking. We need to talk. Now. James arrived at her apartment 30 minutes later, still in his suit from a board meeting, his face creased with concern. Maya was pacing, Arya asleep in her crib, oblivious to the chaos. What happened? James asked. Derek's suing for custody. The words came out flat, shocked. His lawyer called. They have photographs of us together. Of your car outside my building. Of the deliveries. They're claiming I'm in an inappropriate relationship, and that my living situation is unstable. That's ridiculous. We'll fight it. I'll get you the best lawyers. No. Maya's voice cracked. Don't you see? You're the problem. He's using you against me. Every time you show up, every delivery, every dollar you spend, it all looks like exactly what he's claiming. That I'm some gold digger using you for money while my daughter suffers. That's not what this is. I know that. But how does it look to a judge? Single mom, broke, living in a studio apartment, suddenly getting help from a billionaire she barely knows. She laughed bitterly. His lawyer actually asked about your intentions. Like I'm some Victorian maiden you're compromising. James felt ice settle in his stomach. So what are you saying? Maya turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. I'm saying we can't see each other anymore. Not until this is resolved. Maybe not ever. Maya. You don't understand what he can do. What the system can do. They'll take her from me, James. They'll say I'm unfit, that I'm prioritizing some man over my daughter's welfare, that I can't provide a stable home. Her voice rose, desperate. I can't lose her. I won't. She's everything. I know she is. That's why we fight together. I can help. You can't. The words exploded out of her. You can't fix this with money or lawyers or showing up. You being involved makes it worse. Don't you see that? Every connection to you is ammunition for Derek. So you're just going to shut me out? Pretend the last month didn't happen. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice, James said, his voice harder now. You're choosing to believe that you're not worth fighting for. That we're not worth fighting for. This isn't about worth. It's about survival. About protecting my daughter from a system that's already decided mothers like me don't deserve to keep their babies. Mothers like you? James stepped closer. You mean good mothers? Loving mothers? Mothers who sacrifice everything for their children. I mean poor mothers. Struggling mothers. Mothers who made bad choices and now have to live with the consequences. Maya's shoulders shook. You can't understand. You've never had to choose between your pride and your child's welfare. Never had to accept help from a stranger because you literally had no other option. You've never been powerless, James. You think I haven't felt powerless? His voice cracked. I watched my wife and daughter die and couldn't do a goddamn thing to stop it. I've spent 3 years feeling powerless every single day. And then I met you, and for the first time since they died, I felt like maybe I could do something that mattered. That maybe showing up for someone, being there, could make a difference. It does make a difference. You did make a difference. Maya wiped roughly at her tears. But now that difference is being weaponized against me. And I won't, risk losing Arya because I was selfish enough to let myself need you. The word hung between them, selfish. James felt something break in his chest. Is that what you think this is? Selfishness. What else would you call it? I should have kept my distance. Should have said no to the deliveries, to the park dates, to every moment I let myself believe that maybe possibly, Someone like you could care about someone like me. She laughed bitterly. God, I sound like a Hallmark movie. Poor girl, rich guy, tale as old as time. Except in real life, that story ends with her losing everything. It doesn't have to. Yes, it does. Maya's voice broke completely. Because people like you don't stay. You're bored and lonely, and I was convenient, a project, a way to feel useful again. But I have a daughter to protect, and when you inevitably get tired of playing house with a struggling single mom, she's the one who gets hurt. I won't let her love someone who's going to disappear. The words landed like physical blows. James stepped back, each syllable carving deeper into wounds he'd thought were healing. Is that really what you think? His voice was quiet, dangerous. That you're a project? That area's a replacement for Emma? That I've been playing house? Haven't you? Maya's eyes were wild, desperate. Be honest, James. Would you have ever looked twice at me if I hadn't texted you in the middle of your insomnia? If I hadn't needed rescuing? That's not fair. Life's not fair. Derek abandoning us wasn't fair. Having to drop out of nursing school wasn't fair. Working 3 jobs and still barely making rent isn't fair. And you, her voice cracked. You showing up and making me believe that maybe I deserved something good, that maybe I wasn't just surviving but actually living, that wasn't fair either. Because now I know what I'm losing. You're not losing anything. I'm right here. I'm fighting for this. For how long? The question was barely a whisper. How long before you remember that you're James Hartwell, billionaire CEO, and I'm just Maya, the girl who couldn't even keep her phone bill paid? How long before the novelty wears off and you realize you can do so much better than a broke single mom with more problems than solutions? Stop it. James's voice was hard now, angry. Stop putting words in my mouth. Stop deciding how I feel and what I want. You're so convinced you're not worthy of being chosen that you're sabotaging the one real thing either of us has had in years. I'm protecting my daughter. You're protecting yourself. The words exploded out of him. You're so terrified of being hurt again that you're pushing away anyone who might actually stay. Well, guess what, Maya? I'm not Derek. I'm not your mother. I'm not everyone who's ever looked at your life and found it wanting. I'm the guy who shows up. The guy who sees you, really sees you, and doesn't run. Until you do run. And you will. Everyone does. Not everyone. I didn't run when you needed formula at 3 a.m. I didn't run when you asked for help at the hospital. I didn't run when you told me all the ways you think you're failing, because I don't think you're failing at all. I think you're the strongest person I've ever met. But you know what? His laugh was bitter. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should run. Because this, he gestured between them. This only works if you let it. And you're so desperate to prove you don't need anyone that you're willing to throw away something real for the safety of being alone. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Maya stared at him, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. Get out. Maya. Get out. Her voice broke on a sob. Please. Just go. James looked at her, this woman who become essential to him in just a few weeks, this woman who was breaking both their hearts to protect one, and felt his own heart shatter. If I leave now, I'm not coming back, he said quietly. I can't keep doing this. Showing up, proving myself, waiting for you to believe I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not saying you have to choose me over Arya. I'd never ask that. But you do have to choose something other than fear. Then I guess I'm choosing fear. Because at least fear has never left me. The words were a knife. James nodded once, his jaw tight, and turned toward the door. For what it's worth, he said without turning back, I was falling in love with you. Both of you. And I would have stayed. Through the custody battle, through whatever Derek threw at us, through all of it. Because that's what you do when you actually care about someone. You stay. He left, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. Maya collapsed onto her bed and let herself break completely, her sobs muffled in her pillow so they wouldn't wake Arya. She'd done the right thing. The necessary thing. Protected her daughter from more loss, from more instability, from more hope that would inevitably be crushed. So why did it feel like she just made the biggest mistake of her life? James drove home on autopilot, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. When he reached his penthouse, he stood in the vast emptiness and felt every inch of the space mock him. He'd been right 3 years ago. Caring was dangerous. Letting someone in meant giving them the power to destroy you. And Maya had just proved that no matter how much you showed up, some people would never believe they were worth staying for. His phone sat on the counter, silent. No apologetic text. No wait, I made a mistake. Nothing. James picked it up, scrolled to her contact, and hovered over the delete button. Couldn't do it. Instead, he opened the locked bedroom, Catherine and Emma's room, and sat in the silence, surrounded by ghosts and regrets and the crushing loneliness he'd thought he'd escaped. He'd been wrong. Some prisons you carried inside yourself. And no amount of caring for someone else could set you free. Across the city, Maya held Arya against her chest and whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Whether she was apologizing to her daughter or to James or to herself, she couldn't say. All she knew was that she'd chosen survival. And survival had never felt so much like dying. 5 days. Maya counted them like prison sentences, each one heavier than the last. Derek's lawyer had sent the official court documents, thick, formal, full of legal language that basically said, "Prove you're a fit mother or lose your daughter." The hearing was in 3 weeks. She'd called 6 lawyers. None would take her case without a retainer she couldn't afford. "You could ask him," Tammy said carefully over lunch break. "The billionaire. He'd help." No. Maya's voice was flat. "That's what started this whole mess. Maya, you're being stubborn. I'm being smart. Every connection to James makes me look worse. Like I'm using him. Like Arya isn't my priority. Is that what you really think? Or is that what you're telling yourself so you don't have to admit you're scared?" Maya didn't answer, because Tammy was right and that made it worse. Work became her escape. She picked up extra shifts, anything to avoid sitting in her apartment where everything reminded her of James. The stroller in the corner, the formula he'd sent, the blanket from the park that still smelled faintly of his cologne. Mrs. Chun, recovered and back to babysitting, watched her with knowing eyes. "You look terrible, honey." "Thanks. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept?" "I sleep. Lying awake staring at your phone doesn't count." Mrs. Chen adjusted Arya on her hip. "You should call him." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I told him to leave. Because I said horrible things. Because..." Maya's voice cracked. "Because I don't know how to take back words like that. You start with 'I'm sorry' and go from there. It's not that simple. It never is. But being alone isn't simpler, Maya. It's just lonelier." James threw himself into work with a vengeance that worried everyone around him. He was in the office by 6 a.m., leaving after midnight. He scheduled back-to-back meetings, international calls, anything to keep his mind occupied. Because when it wasn't occupied, it drifted to Maya. To Arya. To the life he'd almost had for 3 perfect weeks. "You're going to burn out," Rebecca warned on day 3 of his self-destruction. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You look like death, you're snapping at everyone, and you've had 4 espressos before noon." She sat across from him, concern etched in her face. "What happened with the woman?" "What woman?" "James. I've worked for you for 6 years. I know when something's wrong." He exhaled slowly, setting down his pen. "She ended it. Said I was making her life more complicated. That I was ammunition for her ex's custody case." Was she wrong? Maybe not. Probably not. He rubbed his face. "But I would have fought for her. For them. Instead, she pushed me away before I even got the chance. Because she's scared. I know she's scared. I'm scared too. But you don't throw away something real because it's frightening." Rebecca was quiet for a moment. What did Catherine always say? About fear. James felt the word surface from memory. Fear is just love trying to protect itself. She said that after Emma was born, when I was terrified something would happen to them. His voice cracked. Turns out I was right to be afraid. But you loved them anyway. And I'm guessing you love Maya too. I barely know her. That's not an answer. James met her gaze. Yes. I love her. And her daughter. And it doesn't matter because she's convinced I'm going to leave, so she left first. Then prove her wrong. How? She made it clear she doesn't want me involved. Did she say she doesn't want you? Or did she say she's scared of needing you? Rebecca leaned forward. There's a difference, James. One means it's over. The other means she needs you to fight for her. She told me to leave. And you did. Because you're scared too. Scared of getting hurt again, of losing someone else, of caring too much and having it ripped away. Rebecca's voice softened. But Catherine wouldn't want you to give up this easily. And I don't think you want to either. James stared at his desk, at the work he'd been hiding behind, at the life he'd built that looked impressive from the outside but felt empty from within. What if I fight and she still pushes me away? Then at least you tried. At least she knows someone thought she was worth fighting for. Rebecca stood. But I think you're underestimating her. She's not pushing you away because she doesn't care. She's pushing you away because she cares too much and doesn't know how to handle it. After she left, James sat in his office and thought about courage. About what it meant to show up when every instinct said to protect yourself. About choosing vulnerability over safety. Catherine had been brave. She'd loved fearlessly, fully, even knowing the world could be cruel. Maybe it was time he tried to be brave too. On day 6, Maya's mother called. I heard about the custody case, she said without preamble. Derek's mother told me at church. Maya closed her eyes. Of course she did. I'm handling it. Are you? Because from what I hear, you're about to lose Arya because you couldn't keep your legs closed or your life together. The words were acid, familiar. Maya had heard variations of them for months. But this time, instead of collapsing under the weight, she felt something snap. You know what, Mom? I'm done. Excuse me. I'm done apologizing for my life. Done feeling ashamed because I got pregnant and Derek left. Done listening to you tell me I'm failing when I'm working 3 jobs and keeping my daughter fed and loved and safe. Maya's voice shook but held firm. You want to know why I'm facing a custody battle? Because Derek's a vindictive ass who's mad that I won't let him control me anymore. Not because I'm a bad mother. Maya. No. You don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to judge me for having one person show up and care, for accepting help when I needed it, for maybe possibly, starting to believe I deserve something good. Tears streamed down her face. I'm a good mother. Maybe I'm broke and tired and living in a studio apartment, but Arya is loved. She's thriving. And I did that. Me. Alone. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. For the first time in months, I'm being honest. Maya took a shaky breath. I love you, Mom. But I can't keep trying to earn your approval. I can't keep shrinking myself to fit into your idea of what my life should look like. So either you support me, really support me, or you stay away until you can. She hung up before her mother could respond, then immediately collapsed onto her bed, shaking with adrenaline and terror and something that felt almost like pride. Arya cooed from her crib, and Maya pulled her daughter into her arms. I'm sorry you heard that, baby. I'm sorry for a lot of things. But I'm trying. I promise I'm trying. Her phone buzzed. Not her mother. James. I know you said to stay away, but I can't. Can we talk? Please. Maya stared at the message, her heart hammering. She should say no. Should maintain the boundaries she'd drawn. Should protect herself and Arya from the risk of more loss. But Mrs. Chen's words echoed, being alone isn't simpler. It's just lonelier. And she was so tired of being alone. She typed, "Where?" His response came immediately, "The park. Our bench." 1 hour? Maya looked at Arya, at this tiny human who depended on her for everything, and thought about courage. About what kind of woman she wanted her daughter to see when she looked at her mother. A woman who played it safe? Or a woman who was brave enough to fight for something real? "I'll be there." James arrived first, his heart pounding so hard he felt dizzy. He'd rehearsed what to say a dozen times, but now, sitting on the bench where they'd first really connected, all his prepared words felt inadequate. What if she'd only agreed to meet to tell him it was really over? What if he'd waited too long? What if? "Hi." He turned. Maya stood a few feet away, Arya in her arms, looking exhausted and beautiful and terrified. "Hi," James breathed. "Thank you for coming." "I almost didn't." She moved closer but didn't sit. "I'm still not sure this is a good idea." "It's probably a terrible idea," James admitted. "But I've been thinking about what you said. About me running. About everyone leaving. And you were right, I can't promise I won't die or that something won't happen or that life won't fall apart again. But Maya, I can promise that I won't choose to leave. That's the difference." "James. Let me finish. Please." He stood, facing her fully. "You said I'd get tired of you, that you're not worth the trouble. But here's what I see, a woman so strong she works 3 jobs to provide for her daughter. A woman so loving she pushes away help because she's terrified of failing. A woman so brave she keeps showing up every single day even when everything is stacked against her." His voice cracked. "You asked if you're worth fighting for. Maya, you're worth everything." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "You don't understand what you'd be taking on. The custody battle, the legal fees, Derek's mind games. It's going to be ugly and expensive and—" "I know. I don't care. You say that now. I say that always." James stepped closer. "I've already called my lawyers. They're ready to represent you, no charge, no strings. I've also had them dig into Derek's background. Turns out abandoning your child and then suing for custody months later doesn't look great to judges. We have options." Maya's breath hitched. "Why would you do that?" "Because I love you." The words fell between them like stones in still water. "I love you and Arya, and I'm not going anywhere. You can push me away 100 times, and I'll show up 101. Because that's what love is, it's showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." "I'm scared," Maya whispered. "I know. So am I. I'm terrified of losing you the way I lost Catherine. Terrified of loving Arya and something happening. Terrified that I'm not enough, that I can't protect you both from everything." He took her hand carefully. "But I'm more terrified of not trying. Of letting fear win. Of going back to that empty penthouse and spending the rest of my life wondering what if." Maya looked down at their joined hands, at Arya watching them with wide eyes, at this man who kept showing up no matter how many times she pushed him away. "I said horrible things to you," she said. "Things I didn't mean but can't take back." "I know. And I said some things too. We were both scared and hurting and trying to protect ourselves." He squeezed her hand. "But we don't have to keep hurting. We can choose differently. What if I choose wrong? What if I let you in and you leave anyway? What if Arya gets attached and— what if it works?" James interrupted gently. "What if we fight for this and win? What if we build something real and lasting and good? What if fear is lying to you?" Maya felt something break open in her chest, not breaking apart, but breaking free. All the walls she'd built, all the protection she'd wrapped around herself, cracking under the weight of one simple truth. She didn't want to be alone anymore. "I love you too," she whispered. "I've been trying not to, trying to convince myself you were just a wrong number, just a temporary kindness. But I love you, James. And it terrifies me. Then let's be terrified together." She laughed through her tears, and then she was in his arms, Arya between them, and it felt like coming home. He held them both carefully, like they were precious and breakable and exactly what he'd been searching for. I'm sorry, Maya said against his chest. For pushing you away. For assuming the worst. For not believing you'd stay. I'm sorry for not fighting harder. For leaving when you asked instead of making you understand I was never going to abandon you. He pulled back to look at her. But we're here now. That's what matters. The custody battle. We'll handle it. Together. My lawyers are the best in the city, and they're going to bury Derek's case in paperwork and precedent until he regrets ever threatening you. James's voice was steel. And if he still tries to take Arya, we'll make sure every judge knows exactly what kind of father walks away from his infant daughter and only comes back when there's money involved. That's really attractive, Maya said, surprising herself. James laughed. Vengeful legal strategy does it for you? Apparently. She smiled, real and bright and free. What happens now? Now? We take this one day at a time. No more pushing away out of fear. No more assuming the worst. We communicate, we trust, we show up. He touched her face gently. And we build something real. Not perfect, probably messy and complicated and occasionally frustrating. But real. I can do real. Yeah. Maya kissed him softly, quickly, before she could overthink it. Let's do real. Arya chose that moment to grab James's nose, and they both laughed, the sound mixing with the ambient noise of the park, of life continuing around them, of hope taking root despite everything. They sat on their bench for another hour, planning strategy for the custody case, talking about next steps, occasionally falling into comfortable silence while Arya dozed between them. When the sun started setting, painting the sky in oranges and purples, James said quietly, "Move in with me." Maya's head whipped toward him. What? Move in with me. You and Arya. The penthouse is too big for one person, and your apartment is too small for two. Plus, if Derek's building a case about unstable living conditions, we eliminate that argument. James, that's practical, he finished. Separate bedrooms if you want. No pressure, no expectations except that you let me be there for you both. Let me help without it being ammunition. He paused. And selfishly, I don't want to spend another night alone wondering if you're okay. Maya should have said it was too fast, too much, too everything. But she thought about her studio apartment with its broken AC and thin walls. She thought about Arya having her own room, about not working 3 jobs, about having help that didn't feel like failure. She thought about James, who'd shown up again and again despite her best efforts to push him away. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay. Okay, we'll move in. Temporarily. Until the custody thing is resolved and we figure out. She gestured vaguely. Everything else. James's smile could have lit the darkening park. Temporarily. I can work with that. They both knew temporarily was a lie they were telling themselves. But sometimes you needed a lie to make the truth feel possible. As they walked to the car, James carrying Arya's carrier while Maya pushed the stroller, she caught their reflection in a storefront window, the 3 of them together, looking almost like a family. Not quite. Not yet. But maybe soon. 6 months later. Maya woke to winter sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, momentarily disoriented by the softness of the bed, the silence of the room, the absence of street noise filtering through thin walls. Then she remembered, this was home now. She padded down the hallway in bare feet, past Arya's nursery, the room that had once been locked, that James had opened together with her one tearful afternoon, packing away Emma's things with reverence while telling stories about his daughter. Catherine and Emma's photos now hung in the living room, no longer hidden but honored. Emma's favorite stuffed rabbit sat on a shelf in Arya's room, a bridge between past and present. James was already in the kitchen, Arya on his hip while he attempted to make breakfast one-handed. He'd gotten good at it over the months, the casual choreography of caring for an infant while managing life. She wouldn't let me put her down, he said by way of greeting, gesturing at the scrambled eggs that were slightly too brown. Very demanding, this one. She gets it from her mother, Maya said, kissing Arya's cheek before kissing James properly. 6 months, and it still made her heart race. "How are you feeling about today?" James asked carefully. "Today. The custody hearing." After months of legal maneuvering, depositions, and Derek's increasingly desperate attempts to prove Maya unfit, it all came down to today. Terrified, Maya admitted. But ready. James's lawyers had been thorough, documenting Derek's abandonment, his sporadic employment, his failure to pay any child support, his sudden interest only after learning about James. They'd also documented Maya's transformation, steady employment at a better-paying job James's connections had helped her secure, her return to nursing school part-time, her stable home environment. The case was solid. But family court was unpredictable, and Maya wouldn't breathe easy until the judge's gavel fell. "We should get ready," she said, taking Arya. "Mrs. Chen's meeting us at the courthouse at 9. Mrs. Chen had insisted on coming, despite her age and the early hour. "That baby needs all the support she can get," she'd said firmly. "And so does her mother." Maya's own mother had also called last week, awkward, halting but trying. "I'd like to be there. If you want me there." It wasn't an apology, not quite. But it was a start. The courthouse was imposing, all marble and echoing hallways that made Maya feel small. She clutched Arya closer, drawing strength from her daughter's solid warmth. James's legal team was already there, 3 lawyers in expensive suits who'd spent months preparing for this. Derek stood across the lobby with his single attorney, looking rumpled and resentful. His eyes locked on Maya, then James, and his expression twisted with something ugly. "Ms. Winters." Derek's lawyer approached, her smile professional and cold. "We'd like to discuss a possible settlement." "What kind of settlement?" James's lead attorney, Margaret Chun, no relation to Mrs. Chun, though they joked about it, stepped forward protectively. "My client is willing to relinquish his custody claim in exchange for a financial settlement and regular supervised visitation." "How much?" Maya asked, though she already knew. $500,000. The number hung in the air, obscene. Derek wanted to sell his daughter's custody for $500,000. "No," Maya said flatly. "Ms. Winters, consider." "I said no. We're not paying Derek to be a father. If he wants to be in Arya's life, he can prove he deserves it. Otherwise, he can walk away like he did the first time, just this time legally." Derek's face flushed red. He pushed past his lawyer. "You think you're so much better than me now? Got your rich boyfriend buying you fancy lawyers and a nice apartment? Well, guess what? You're still the same screwed-up girl who got knocked up and dropped out of school." "That's enough," James said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Or what? You gonna buy me off too? Everything's for sale with guys like you." Derek sneered. "How long before you get bored with playing daddy to another man's kid?" "I'm not playing anything," James said evenly. "I love Maya and Arya. And unlike you, I show up. Every day. Not for money, not for leverage, because that's what family does." "She's not your family." "She is now." James took Maya's hand. "And we're done negotiating with a man who sees his daughter as a paycheck." They walked toward the courtroom, Derek's shouts following them until security intervened. Maya was shaking, and James squeezed her hand. "You were amazing," he murmured. "I feel like I'm going to throw up." "That's normal. But Margaret says we have this." "Says. Not guarantees." "Nothing's guaranteed, Maya. Except that we're in this together." The hearing lasted 3 hours. Derek's lawyer painted Maya as an opportunist who'd latched onto a wealthy man to improve her circumstances, questioned her ability to provide before meeting James, suggested her living situation was unstable and dependent on a romantic relationship that could end at any time. Then Margaret stood up. She methodically dismantled every argument. Showed Derek's abandonment, his failure to support his daughter financially or emotionally, his sudden interest only after learning about James's involvement. She called witnesses, Mrs. Chun, who testified about Maya's devotion, Maya's manager at her new job, who spoke about her work ethic, even Rebecca, James's assistant, who'd gotten to know Maya and Arya over months of dinner visits. "Ms. Winters is not an opportunist," Margaret said firmly. She's a young mother who worked 3 jobs to provide for her daughter while pursuing her education. She accepted help when she needed it, which is wisdom, not weakness. And she's built a stable, loving home for Arya. That Mr. Thompson only became concerned about his daughter's welfare after money entered the picture tells you everything you need to know about his priorities. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, listened to everything. Then she asked to see Arya. Maya's hands shook as she brought her daughter forward. Arya, now 10 months old and mobile, looked at the judge with curious eyes. "She's healthy?" the judge asked. "Very," Maya said. "Hitting all her milestones early, actually. She started crawling at 6 months, pulling up at 8. She's happy, Your Honor. She's loved." The judge studied Arya, then Derek, then Maya and James standing together. "Mr. Thompson, why do you want custody of your daughter?" Derek stammered. "She's my daughter. I have rights." "You have responsibilities too, which you failed to exercise for the first 6 months of her life. Why now?" I was young. I made mistakes. But I'm ready now to be a father." "Are you? Or are you ready to receive a financial settlement?" The judge's voice was steel. "I've reviewed the evidence, Mr. Thompson. Your interest in Arya coincides exactly with Ms. Winter's meeting Mr. Hartwell. That's not parental instinct. That's opportunism." Derek's face went red, but he said nothing. The judge turned to Maya. "Ms. Winters, the court recognizes that your circumstances have improved significantly. Are you prepared to allow Mr. Thompson's supervised visitation?" Maya's first instinct was to say no, to protect Arya from someone who'd already abandoned her once. But she thought about the kind of mother she wanted to be, not one driven by revenge, but by what was best for her daughter. "If Derek genuinely wants to be in Arya's life, I won't stand in his way," she said carefully. "But it has to be about her, not about him. Supervised visits until he proves he's consistent. No financial strings, no manipulation. Just being a father." The judge nodded approvingly. Then she delivered her ruling. "Mr. Thompson, your petition for joint custody is denied. Ms. Winters will retain full legal and physical custody. You are granted supervised visitation, 4 hours per month, to be increased only if you demonstrate consistent interest in your daughter's welfare over a minimum of 6 months. You are also ordered to pay child support, $800 per month, retroactive to Arya's birth." Derek's face went from red to white. "I can't afford." "You should have thought of that before abandoning your child and then attempting to extort money from Ms. Winters. This court does not look favorably on parental manipulation." The judge's gavel fell with finality. "We're adjourned." Maya felt her knees buckle. James caught her, held her up, and she turned her face into his chest and let herself cry, relief, joy, exhaustion, everything. "You did it," James murmured into her hair. "She's yours. Legally, completely yours." "Ours," Maya corrected, pulling back to look at him. "She's ours." They celebrated that night at the penthouse, a quiet celebration with Mrs. Chun, Rebecca, James's brother Michael, and even Maya's mother, who'd shown up to court late but had shown up. "I'm proud of you," her mother said quietly, while everyone else cooed over Arya. "I know I haven't said it enough. Or at all. But you're a good mother, Maya. Better than I was." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was acknowledgement. Maya would take it. Later, after everyone left, after Arya was asleep in her crib, Maya found James in what used to be his office and was now a study area where she did her nursing schoolwork. "Hey," she said softly. "You okay?" "I'm perfect." He pulled her into his lap. Today was good. Today was terrifying. But good. He kissed her temple. "You were incredible in there. Standing up to Derek, offering visitation even when you didn't have to. Catherine would have liked you." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. James rarely mentioned Catherine directly, still navigating the complexity of loving someone new while honoring someone lost. "I wish I could have met her," Maya said. "And Emma." "Me too." I think. He paused, choosing words carefully. I think they'd be happy I found you. That I'm living again instead of just existing. Do you ever feel guilty about moving on? Every day, James admitted. But my therapist, who I actually see regularly now, thanks to you, says that's normal. That loving you doesn't erase what I had with Catherine. It's just different. Different good or different complicated? Both. He smiled. But mostly good. You and Arya, you gave me a reason to be present. To feel things. To believe that joy is possible even after loss. Maya kissed him softly. You gave me that too. Made me believe I deserved more than just surviving. They sat in comfortable silence, the city glowing beyond the windows, their daughter sleeping peacefully down the hall, their life together imperfect and beautiful and real. I have something for you, James said eventually. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's heart stopped. James. It's not what you think. Well, it is, but not today. He opened the box to reveal a delicate ring, not an engagement ring, but a promise ring with 3 small stones. Blue topaz for December, when we met. Peridot for August, Arya's birth month. And diamond because... He smiled. Because you're both precious. James. Maya's voice broke. I know we said we'd take things slow. And we are. But I also know that 6 months from now, 6 years from now, I'm going to want exactly this, you, me, Arya, whatever family we build. So this is a promise. That I'm here. That I'm staying. That when you're ready, if you're ready, I'm asking. Maya took the ring with shaking hands, slipping it onto her right hand. It's beautiful. So are you. I'm a mess. You're my mess. James pulled her closer. And for the record? I'm ready whenever you are. But there's no pressure. We have time. Maya thought about time, how it had broken them both, brought them together, healed them slowly. How 6 months ago she'd been alone and desperate, and now she was here, held and loved and home. Ask me again in 6 months, she said. On our 1-year anniversary of you answering a wrong number. That's very specific. I'm a planner now. You're rubbing off on me. James laughed, and they stayed there, wrapped in each other, planning futures that actually felt possible. 1 year later. The text came at 3 a.m., just like the first one. Maya was awake, Arya was teething and cranky, when her phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Please help. Baby won't stop crying and I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. Maya stared at it for a long moment, remembering another night, another desperate plea, another woman at the end of her rope. She showed James, who'd also been woken by Arya's cries. Wrong number, he said. Want me to tell them? No. Maya typed back, You've got this, Mama. Take a breath. How old is the baby? The response came quickly, 3 weeks. She's crying and I feel like I'm failing. You're not failing. You're surviving. That's enough. Maya paused, then added, What do you need right now? A longer pause. Then, someone to tell me it gets better. Maya felt tears in her eyes. She looked at James, at Arya finally settling in his arms, at the life they'd built from a single desperate text. It gets better, she typed. I promise. And you're not alone. None of us are. She gave the woman resources, local support groups, a crisis hotline, gentle encouragement. Then she added something else. If you need help, real help, text this number back tomorrow when you're rested. I can't fix everything, but I can show up. We all need someone to show up. James read over her shoulder, smiling. Starting a support group? Maybe. I was helped when I needed it most. Seems only fair to pass it on. That's very like you. It's very like us, Maya corrected. She looked at the ring on her left hand now, the engagement ring James had given her exactly 6 months ago, on schedule. They were getting married in the spring, a small ceremony with just family and the people who mattered. Arya had taken her first steps last month. Maya had passed her nursing boards. James had started a foundation to help single mothers with childcare and education costs. Their life wasn't perfect. They still had hard days, moments of grief for what they'd lost, fears about the future. But they showed up for each other. Every single day, they showed up. "Come back to bed," James murmured, Arya finally asleep on his shoulder. "We've got an early morning tomorrow." Maya followed him down the hallway, past Emma's photo on the wall, past Arya's nursery with its night light glowing softly, into the bedroom they shared. As she settled under the covers, James's arm around her waist, Arya sleeping peacefully in her crib nearby, Maya thought about wrong numbers. How a single desperate text at 3 a.m. had changed everything. How asking for help had felt like failure, but turned out to be the bravest thing she'd ever done. How James had answered when he could have ignored, had shown up when he could have walked away, had stayed when everything said to run. Her phone buzzed one last time. The unknown number. "Thank you. For responding. For caring. For making me feel less alone." Maya smiled in the darkness and typed back, "That's what we do. We show up for each other. Sleep well, Mama. Tomorrow is a new day." She set her phone aside and felt James pull her closer. Outside, the city hummed with millions of lives, millions of stories, millions of people trying to survive and occasionally finding each other in the darkness. And in this penthouse that had once been a tomb but was now a home, 3 people slept, a family built not by blood or circumstance, but by the courage to need and be needed, to ask and to answer, to stay when everything said to go. Maya's last thought before sleep claimed her was simple and true. Wrong numbers aren't always mistakes. Sometimes they're miracles wearing a disguise. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is text a stranger at 3 a.m. and say, "Please. I need help." Because somewhere, someone might answer. And everything might change. 2 years after that first text, Maya stood in a hospital room wearing scrubs, real ones this time, earned ones. She'd graduated nursing school with honors and was now working in pediatrics, exactly where she'd always wanted to be. Her patient was a young mother, maybe 22, with a newborn and no partner and fear written across her face. "You're going to be okay," Maya told her gently. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you're going to be okay." "How do you know?" the woman whispered. Maya thought about a studio apartment, an empty formula container, a desperate text sent to the wrong number. She thought about James showing up with 6 cans of formula and changing her entire life. She thought about Arya, now almost 3, starting preschool next month. She thought about the life she'd built from ashes and help and the courage to accept both. "Because I've been where you are," Maya said. "And I survived. And so will you. But you don't have to do it alone." She left her personal number, something she rarely did, something against protocol, but sometimes protocols needed to be broken for the right reasons. That evening, she came home to chaos. Arya had painted herself and half the living room with washable markers. James was attempting damage control, looking harried and happy and exactly like the father he'd never thought he'd be again. "Help," he said when he saw her. I turned my back for 30 seconds. Maya laughed and joined the cleanup, and later, after Arya was bathed and storied and tucked into bed, she and James collapsed on the couch. "I gave my number to a patient today," Maya admitted. "A single mom, scared and alone. Reminded me of me." "Are you starting that support group?" "Maybe. Would that be crazy?" "No crazier than texting a random billionaire at 3 a.m. asking for formula." That worked out pretty well though. It really did. James pulled her close. "Build your support group. Help people. That's who you are. It's one of the reasons I love you." Maya tilted her face up for a kiss, then said, "I have news. Good news or concerning news. Depends on your perspective." She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "Surprise." James's eyes went wide. "We're about 6 weeks, apparently. I found out today at my physical. Surprise." For a moment, James couldn't speak. Maya saw the emotions flicker across his face. Joy, terror, grief, hope, all tangled together. "Say something," she whispered. I'm scared, he admitted. Terrified. After Emma. I know. I'm scared too. But we're doing this together. And we're going to love this baby the way we love Arya. Fiercely, completely, with everything we have. Even though it might hurt? Especially because it might hurt. Because that's what love is, James. It's showing up even when you're scared. It's choosing hope over fear. It's believing that the risk is worth it. He kissed her then, deep and tender and full of all the words he couldn't say. When they pulled apart, he was crying. We're having a baby, he said wonderingly. We're having a baby. Arya's going to be a big sister. She's going to be amazing at it. Bossy, but amazing. James laughed through his tears, and they sat in their living room, the one with marker stains and toy bins and photos of their blended family covering the walls, and planned for a future that felt both terrifying and beautiful. Later that night, Maya's phone buzzed. The young mother from the hospital. Thank you for today. For seeing me. For the number. I might actually use it. Maya smiled and typed back. Please do. None of us are meant to do this alone. Call any time. She set her phone down and curled into James's side, her hand on her belly where new life was growing, their daughter sleeping down the hall, their family expanding in ways they'd never imagined. And she thought, not for the first time, about the strange and beautiful ways life could change. How a wrong number could become the right everything. How the lowest moment could lead to the highest joy. How asking for help could be the strongest thing you ever did. So here's our final question for you. What would your life look like if you were brave enough to ask for help when you needed it? And what would it look like if you were brave enough to answer when someone asked? Because maybe, just maybe, we're all one wrong number away from finding exactly what we need. Thank you for watching to the end. I believe you enjoyed it. We have a lot of other interesting stories like this lined up for you already, so click the image showing on your screen to watch the next.